The asteroid came without warning, a rogue chunk of ice and metal that had wandered between star systems for millennia before finding its catastrophic destination. When it struck the moon of Kethvala, the impact sent tremors through the galaxies. Political landscape as much as it did through the rocky surface below. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her face against the observation deck's reinforced viewport, watching the debris field spread like a wound across space. The Varkal nesting grounds, sacred, untouchable, and now destroyed. Around her, the emergency council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 12 different species argued in overlapping translations, their translators working overtime to keep up with the panic. Impossible, chiddered Ambassador HFY, his mantis-like form rigid with fear. The Varkal will think this was an attack. They'll hunt every starfaring species to extinction. Sarah turned from the viewport, her weathered hands steady despite the chaos around her. At 52, she had seen enough disasters to know when panic clouded judgment. How many cubs were in the nesting grounds? She asked quietly. The room fell silent. Captain Vorth, a reptilian saurian with battle scars across his scaled hide, stepped forward. Intelligence suggests perhaps 300 young. Maybe more. His voice carried the weight of someone who understood the magnitude of loss. 300. Sarah closed her eyes, picturing the satellite images from before the impact. Elaborate tunnels carved into living rock, nurseries where the galaxy's most feared predators raised their young with surprising tenderness. The Varkal were apex hunters, yes, but they were also devoted parents. What's the Galactic Council's position? She asked. Ambassador HFY's compound eyes reflected the starlight. Quarantine the system. Let the Varkal grieve, then hope they don't seek revenge. It's the only logical course. Sarah shook her head. That's not a solution. That's cowardice. The room erupted in protests. Only Captain Vorth remained silent, watching her with calculating eyes. He had fought alongside humans in the Outer Rim. Conflicts. He knew how they thought differently than other species. Dr. Chen, HFY's voice rose to a dangerous pitch. You cannot be suggesting what I think you're suggesting. The Varkal trust no one. They've killed ambassadors for approaching their territory uninvited. What you're contemplating is suicide. Sarah walked to the central holographic display, where Kethvala's moon rotated slowly, its surface scarred by the fresh crater. Maybe. But those are children down there. Some might still be alive, trapped in collapsed tunnels. Others could be injured, dying while we debate politics. She touched the display, zooming in on the impact site. I've studied Varkal behavior for 15 years. They are not monsters, they are protective parents. If we go down there armed, expecting a fight, that's exactly what we'll get. But if we go as healers, they'll kill you before you reach the surface. Captain Vorth interjected, but his tone was curious rather than dismissive. Sarah smiled grimly. Maybe. But what if they don't? What if, for once, someone looked past the claws and teeth and saw grieving parents who need help? The council chamber fell into contemplative silence. Outside the viewport, the debris field continued its slow dance around the wounded moon, and somewhere below, in the darkness and rubble, Varkal cubs might be crying for their parents. Dr. Sarah Chen had made her decision. Now she just had to convince others to trust in humanity's most dangerous trait, their unwillingness to abandon the helpless, no matter the cost. The Mercy's hand descended through Kethvala's thin atmosphere like a silver prayer, its hull unmarked. by weapons or military insignia. Sarah Chen sat in the co-pilot's seat, watching the scarred landscape rush toward them. Beside her, Lieutenant Marcus Rivera, a young medic with steady hands and an equally steady heart, monitored the life support readings of their rescue equipment. "Picking up massive heat signatures moving toward our landing zone," reported Elena Vasquez from the sensor station. The communications officer's voice carried only professional calm, though her knuckles were white where she gripped her console. 12 and no, 15 adult Varkal. "They are big, Dr. Chen. Bigger than the files suggested." Through the main viewport, Sarah caught her first glimpse of the creatures that had terrified the galaxy for centuries. Even at this distance, their presence was overwhelming. The Varkal moved with liquid grace across the rocky terrain, each one standing nearly 4 meters tall. Their obsidian black hides seemed to absorb light, making them appear like walking shadows. Crystalline spines ran along their backs, catching the dim sunlight and throwing it back in sharp, prismatic flashes. "Magnificent," Sarah whispered. Dr. James Okafor, their xenobiologist, looked up from his tablet where he'd been reviewing Varkal anatomy charts. "The largest appears to be a matriarch. Note the silver markings on her crest, that indicates high social status. Probably the leader of this nesting group." Sarah nodded, studying the magnificent creature. The matriarch stood at the crater's edge, her massive head tilted toward their approaching ship. Even from this distance, Sarah could see the intelligence in those amber eyes and the pain. "Landing in 30 seconds, announced their pilot. Commander Zhong Wei, a veteran of the asteroid mining colonies who had volunteered for this mission despite knowing the odds. Dr. Chen, last chance to reconsider. We could drop supplies and retreat to safe distance." "No." Sarah's voice was firm. "Those are parents down there, searching for their children. If we want their trust, we have to earn it." The ship touched down with barely a whisper, its advanced dampeners absorbing the impact. Through the sensors, they watched the Varkal approach. The creatures moved in perfect formation, their movements coordinated with military precision. The matriarch led them, her stride purposeful and predatory. "Heart rate elevated but stable," Dr. Okafor observed, checking his bioreadings. "They are alert but not yet in full combat posture." "That's encouraging." Sarah stood and moved toward the airlock, gathering her courage like armor. "Remember, no sudden movements. Keep your hands visible. If they charge, don't run, it triggers their hunting instincts. Stand your ground and make yourself as small as possible." Lieutenant Rivera checked his medical supplies one final time. "What if they attack anyway?" Sarah paused at the airlock controls. "Then we hope dying for their children means something to them." The outer door cycled open with a soft hiss. The air that rushed in carried scents of sulfur and something else, something wild and clean that spoke of open spaces and ancient hunts. Sarah stepped onto the rocky surface, her team close behind her. The Varkal had formed a semicircle around their ship, cutting off any chance of retreat. Up close, they were even more impressive and terrifying. Their heads were elongated and predatory, filled with rows of crystalline teeth that could shear through starship hull plating. Their hands ended in retractable claws that could slice through armor like paper. The matriarch stepped forward, lowering her massive head to study these strange, soft-skinned visitors. When she opened her mouth, the sound that emerged was not quite a roar, not quite speech, something between the two that resonated in Sarah's bones. Sarah slowly raised her hands, palms open, showing she carried no weapons. Then she did something that made her team hold their breath in terror. She knelt. In the universal language of submission and respect, Dr. Sarah Chen placed herself at the mercy of the galaxy's most dangerous predators and waited to see if compassion could bridge the gulf between species. The matriarch's amber eyes studied Sarah for what felt like an eternity. The massive Varkal's breathing created small clouds in the thin air, each exhalation a reminder of the raw power contained within that obsidian frame. Around them, the other adults remained motionless, but Sarah could sense their redness, coiled springs waiting for their leader's signal. Then, with surprising gentleness, the matriarch extended one clawed hand toward Sarah's face. The claw, sharp enough to tear through steel, touched her cheek with the delicacy of a feather. The contact sent a shock through Sarah's system, not of pain, but of connection. In that touch, she felt recognition. The matriarch straightened and turned toward the crater, releasing a low, harmonious call that echoed across the devastated landscape. It was answered by cries from beneath the rubble, faint, desperate, but unmistakably alive. "Cubs," Dr. Okafor breathed. "There are survivors." Sarah rose slowly, never breaking eye contact with the matriarch. "We need to work together," she said. Knowing the creature couldn't understand her words but hoping the tone would translate. She gestured to her team, then to the rescue equipment they'd brought. Lieutenant Rivera unpacked the first of their thermal scanners, a device that could detect body heat through meters of rock and debris. As he activated it, several of the younger Varkal males growled, their spines flaring with bioluminescent warning displays. The matriarch silenced them with a sharp bark, then watched intently as Rivera began scanning the rubble field. When the device chimed, indicating life signs below, she moved closer, her massive form casting a shadow over the human medic. 12 signatures, Rivera reported, his voice tight with concentration and barely controlled fear. Ranging from weak to strong. Some are moving, others. He paused, checking his readings. Others aren't. Elena Vasquez activated her communications array, coordinating with the ship's AI to begin precision excavation. Dr. Chen, I'm getting interference from some kind of natural electromagnetic field. The Varkal themselves, their crystalline spines are generating it. Sarah looked up at the matriarch, then made a decision that would either save lives or end them all. She approached the massive creature and gently placed her hand on one of the lower spines on its leg. The matriarch tensed, and every other Varkal in the area focused on Sarah with predatory intensity. "We need you to step back," Sarah said softly, using gestures to indicate distance. "Your bodies are interfering with our equipment." The matriarch studied her for a long moment, then released another call. The other Varkal began to withdraw, forming a wider perimeter around the rescue site. But they didn't leave, they watched. Their amber eyes tracking every movement as the humans began their work. Commander Zhong brought the ship's excavation drones online, small but powerful machines designed for precision mining. Dr. Okafor programmed them to follow the life sign readings, carving careful tunnels through the collapsed stone. It was delicate work, too much force and they might bring down more debris on the trapped cubs. The first breakthrough came after 2 hours of careful digging. A thermal scanner detected a cavity, and moments later, the faint sound of distressed chirping echoed from within. Sarah grabbed a medical kit and crawled into the newly opened tunnel, her headlamp cutting through the darkness. What she found nearly broke her heart. A Varkal cub, no larger than a house cat despite its fearsome heritage, lay trapped beneath a fallen stone beam. Its obsidian hide was scraped and bleeding, and one of its delicate crystalline spines was cracked. When it saw Sarah, it didn't flee or attack, it cried, a sound so achingly similar to any injured child that Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. "It's okay, little one," she whispered, carefully assessing its injuries. The beam had pinned its hind leg, but didn't appear to have broken any bones. Sarah activated her portable graviton field generator, a piece of technology that could briefly negate the weight of objects. As the beam lifted, the cub struggled to its feet, then immediately tried to climb toward Sarah. She cradled it gently, feeling its rapid heartbeat against her chest, and began the careful journey back to the surface. When she emerged from the tunnel carrying the rescued cub, every Varkal in sight froze. The matriarch approached slowly, her amber eyes fixed on the small form in Sarah's arms. The cub chirped weakly, reaching toward its elder with obvious recognition. Sarah carefully placed the injured cub on the ground between herself and the matriarch. The adult Varkal bent down and touched her offspring with the same gentleness. She had shown Sarah, examining its injuries with obvious concern. Then she looked up at Sarah, and in those ancient amber eyes, the human doctor saw something that would change the relationship between their species forever: gratitude. By the end of the first day, they had rescued 17 cubs. The process became a carefully choreographed dance between species, humans using their technology to locate and reach the trapped young, while the adult Varkal provided their own assistance in ways that constantly surprised Sarah's team. The breakthrough came when Dr. Okafor noticed that the Varkal had begun organizing themselves into specialized groups. The largest males used their incredible strength to move debris that would have taken the human machinery hours to clear. The females demonstrated an almost supernatural ability to locate their young, their crystalline spines resonating with frequencies that guided the rescue teams to exactly the right spots. "It's remarkable," Elena reported as she monitored the collaborative effort. "They are not just watching us work, they are actively participating. Look at this." On her screen, thermal imaging showed a large male Varkal carefully manipulating fallen stone slabs, creating a clear path for Lieutenant Rivera to reach a group of trapped cubs. The creature's massive claws, so deadly in combat, moved with surgical precision to avoid causing further collapse. Sarah paused in her own excavation work to watch the display. "They understand what we are trying to do. More than that, they trust us enough to help." The matriarch, who had remained close to Sarah throughout the day, approached with purposeful strides. In her arms, she carried something that made the entire human team stop and stare, a Varkal cub that was clearly dying. The small creature's breathing was labored, its crystalline spines dim and flickering weakly. A massive piece of debris had crushed its torso, causing internal injuries that were beyond the natural healing capabilities of its species. The matriarch placed the cub gently at Sarah's feet, then stepped back with an expression that transcended species barriers, apparent begging for help. "Can we save it?" Commander Jong asked quietly. Dr. Okafor ran a quick scan with his medical tricorder. Massive internal bleeding, 3 broken ribs, possible punctured lung. In a human, these injuries would be critical but survivable with proper treatment. But Varkal physiology is different, but not incompatible, Sarah finished, already reaching for her medical supplies. Their crystalline spines aren't just decorative, they are part of their circulatory system. If I can stabilize the damaged spine network, she worked with focused intensity, using a combination of human medical technology and educated guesses about Vakal biology. The entire time, the matriarch watched her every movement, occasionally making soft sounds that Sarah interpreted as encouragement or concern. Other Vakal gathered around them, forming a protective circle. Their bioluminescent spines began to pulse in synchronized patterns, creating an otherworldly light show that bathed the medical procedure in shifting colors. Dr. Okafor took readings and realized what was happening. "They are sharing energy," he whispered in amazement. "Their crystalline structures are creating a resonance field, channeling life force into the injured cub." Sarah felt it too, a warm, tingling sensation that seemed to flow through her hands. As she worked, the cub's vital signs began to stabilize, its breathing becoming stronger and more regular. When she finally finished the procedure, the small creature opened its amber eyes and looked directly at her. Then it did something unprecedented in the recorded history of human Vakal interaction. It purred. The sound was like crystal chimes, mixed with distant thunder, a frequency that seemed to resonate in the human's bones. Around them, every adult Vakal began to emit the same harmonic vibration, creating a chorus that filled the crater with music that was both alien and achingly beautiful. The matriarch approached Sarah and gently touched her forehead with the flat of her palm. It was a gesture that Dr. Okafor recognized from his xenological studies, the Vakal marker family. "They've adopted us," he said in wonder. "We are not just allies anymore. We are pack." As if to confirm his assessment, several of the younger Vakal began bringing the humans gifts, crystalline formations that sparkled with internal light, carefully selected stones with perfect symmetry, even small creatures that they had caught and prepared according to their own customs. Lieutenant Rivera, exhausted from hours of rescue work, found himself surrounded by Vakal cubs who had been treating him like a favorite uncle. They climbed on his shoulders, investigated his equipment with curious chirps, and seemed determined to share their own small treasures with him. "I think," Sarah said as she watched her team being gradually adopted by their former enemies, "we've just rewritten the rules of interspecies diplomacy." The matriarch rumbled what sounded like agreement, then gestured toward the horizon where the first of two suns was beginning to set. More Vakal were approaching, not the rescue group's family unit, but others drawn by the resonance songs that had been carrying across the continent all day. Word was spreading through the Vakal community. The soft-skinned strangers were not enemies, but healers who risked their lives to save Vakal young. The galaxy was about to discover that earning the trust of its most dangerous predators would change everything. 6 months after the Kethvala rescue, the galaxy was still reeling from the implications. The footage of humans working alongside Vakal had spread across every inhabited system, fundamentally altering how other species viewed both groups. Sarah stood on the bridge of the New Covenant, humanity's first joint species medical vessel, watching as Vakal fighters escorted their ship through the Helix Nebula. The sight still amazed her, the sleek, predatory vessels moving in perfect harmony with human frigates, their formation speaking to a level of trust that most species couldn't comprehend. "Incoming transmission from the Theta Centauri colony," announced Captain Yuki Tanaka, who had volunteered to command this unprecedented mission. "They are reporting Saurian raiders in the outer system." Sarah nodded grimly. The hegemony war had been escalating for months, with the militaristic Saurian Republic launching surprise attacks on smaller colonies throughout the sector. What they hadn't counted on was humanity's new allies. "Signal the Vakal squadron," Sarah ordered, "and open a channel to Serkar." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the scarred visage of the matriarch who had first touched Sarah's face in that crater on Kethvala. Surkar had become the official liaison between her people and the humans, a role that carried immense prestige in Varkal society. Hunt Mother, Surkar spoke in carefully practiced English, her accent giving the words a musical quality that still sent chills down Sarah's spine. The scale crawler's death threatened soft cubs. Sarah smiled at the affectionate term the Varkal had adopted for human children. Confirmed, old friend. Theta Centauri has 15,000 civilians, including 3,000 under the age of 12. Surkar's amber eyes flashed with predatory light. This insult will not stand. My warrior's hunger for proper prey. The tactical display showed the situation in stark relief. 12 Saurian heavy cruisers had surrounded the agricultural colony, demanding surrender and tribute. Their commander, General Vextar, was known for his brutality toward civilian populations. Under normal circumstances, the colony's minimal defenses would have lasted perhaps an hour, but these weren't normal circumstances. Varkal Strike Force. Alpha, this is Dr. Chen, Sarah announced over the tactical network. Remember, our goal is protection, not slaughter. Disable their weapons and engines, but give them a chance to withdraw. The response came not from Surkar, but from her second-in-command, a massive male called Kriegvor, understood, pack leader. We hunt clean. The Varkal had developed their own understanding of human military ethics, adapting their natural predatory instincts to match humanity's preference for measured response. It was a compromise that had taken months to negotiate, but the results were spectacular. Sarah watched the engagement unfold on her tactical displays with professional admiration. The Varkal fighters moved like living shadows, their bioorganic vessels shifting and flowing through space in patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. They struck with precision that surgically removed threats while minimizing casualties, a fighting style that no other species had ever witnessed from the feared predators. Saurian flagship is hailing us, reported communications officer Chen Liu, no relation to Sarah, despite the shared surname. General Vextar wants to speak directly to the human commander. Put him through. The screen split to show the reptilian features of the Saurian general, his scales flushed with the colors of anger and humiliation. Human. Call off these monsters before I glass every colony in this sector. Sarah's response was calm and measured. General, you attacked a defenseless civilian population. The Varkal are simply ensuring that those people remain safe. Withdraw your forces and there will be no further conflict. You think you can threaten the Republic with your pet demons? Vextar's voice rose to a shriek. We crushed the hegemony. We will crush you too. Before Sarah could respond, Surkar's image appeared alongside the general's. The matriarch's voice carried the patient tone of a teacher explaining simple concepts to a slow student. Scale crawler, she said, you threaten soft cubs. This makes you prey, not predator. Withdraw or discover why the galaxy fears us. The psychological impact was immediate. General Vextar, who had built his reputation on intimidating weaker species, found himself face to face with a creature that could literally tear him apart with her bare hands. The fact that she was showing restraint only made her more terrifying. You can't be serious, he stammered. The Varkal don't protect other species. You're apex predators. Surkar's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. Yes. We are apex predators. And we have chosen our pack. She gestured toward Sarah with obvious respect. These humans bled for our children when others fled in fear. They earn trust that cannot be broken. The transmission cut off as the Saurian fleet began a hasty retreat, their commander's bravado completely shattered. Around the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as word spread. Humanity wasn't just allied with the Vakal, they were family. Dr. Sarah Chen looked out at the stars and reflected on how quickly everything had changed. 6 months ago, humans had been seen as a minor species, too soft and emotional to matter in galactic politics. Now they were the only race trusted by the galaxy's most feared predators, making them perhaps the most influential species in known space. Dr. Chen, Captain Tanaka interrupted her thoughts. We're receiving priority communications from over 40 different worlds. They are all requesting humanitarian aid with Vakal protection. Sarah nodded, understanding the implications. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not through conquest or intimidation, but through compassion and courage. They had earned the trust of the untamable, and in doing so, had become the guardians of the innocent across known space. The age of human Vakal cooperation had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.